All right, welcome to What's in the Box, episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna.
And I'm Eric.
And tonight we are having a behind the scenes episode featuring RJ Rolls and Jason Myers from Crimson Pinnacle Press. Welcome.
Hiya.
Glad you guys could come on.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us tonight. What we're trying to do with these episodes is not only discuss movies and books, but also we want to go behind the scenes. We know authors always get the spotlight, right? It's never the publishers, it's never the cover artists or the editors or things like that. So we want to spotlight people behind the scenes that really the books might not exist without these people. So RJ and Jason, if you want to just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your background.
I'll let Jason go first.
Oh, that's a gentleman. My name is Jason Myers. If that's too hard, just call me Jay. Background, I'm EMT, firefighter, 10 years with both of those. Always wanted to write, always loved reading, always loved writing. Just kind of put it all, on the back burner for a while. Started focusing on, a career job, and got my EMT, got my fire, and then kind of started having, the EMT PTSD stuff. And, someone said, write about it. You used to write, just put it on paper. I'm like, all right, I got this nightmare that was going through my head, and figured, maybe I'll try writing again. And I wrote it, and it ended up being this beautiful, beautiful novella called Decisions. It was just actually published by Cemetery Dance with Rich Chismar, and
Very cool.
that kind of was my first being published, and it was huge because it's like a little limited release just for me, and then a couple other anthologies started popping up. I'm like, I could write for these people, and one of those was the Books of Horror Facebook group, which was started by Mr. Rolls down there. And he had an open call submission. Hey, have you ever wanted to be published? And, I was like, I do. I really do. And I got ideas. And I sent him a couple stories, and he picked up one and said, hey, welcome to the Books of Horror. And, from there, we kind of spitballed ideas off each other and helped each other on stories. And he would send me something, and I would help edit it and send it back to him, and vice versa. And we had an idea. He had an idea, I think. He messaged me one day. He goes, what's a story that you've always wanted to write? Incorporate a couple of different things, and we'll see if we can make this happen. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, just don't think, just answer. And I said, witches in New Orleans, and I want them to kind of use, my medical sense a little bit from being an EMT, kind of throw that in there. He goes, you want to write a story together? And it was going to be this little short story, and turned into a whole novel. And it's our first, co-author book together. It's called Payable on Death.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if that was the one you're talking about.
That's it. Yeah, that's our baby, Payable on Death. And then after we finished writing it, RJ took the close on that one, and he left it open. And he said, what do you think? We got more in us, man. So, we picked it up and ran with it again and came up with a second story. And I think this time I finished the second one, and I left it open too, and kind of said the same thing back to him, like, what you want to do, bud? And ended up being this whole trilogy. And it's started from such a simple premise of him just messaging me one day, hey, what's something that you've always wanted to write about that you haven't written about yet?
You know what? I have a question about that. How does that work when you guys co-author a book like that?
The first one, it was, hey, I'm going to write 500 words, pass it back to you. You write 500, pass it back. And it went like that, every single night. And, 500 words doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean, to put a full story together in 500 words is a lot of work. So you try to do the best, and to send it back to him, and then he would read it, and you would see him kind of reading it. And then all of a sudden he would start typing. I could watch him type. I think one night we just went back and forth for like 4 or 5 hours, just writing back and forth. And the second book, he wanted to take the opening because he left the end. So, I let him, and then we're like, let's stretch it from 500 because it seemed like it was, rushing by. So I think we went to 2,000 words, and then he would write 2,000, I'd write 2,000, and then the stories follow different timelines as well. So at first we were just gonna, he was gonna do timeline A, I'm gonna do timeline B, and it ended up being, hey, I'm doing timeline A, and I'm gonna jump into timeline A again, and we would just bounce back and forth and cover each other's timelines, and so that way it was just a full, a flow where you didn't know where it stopped and picked back up, and you couldn't tell his writing from my style, and we made, a lot of meticulous errors that we went back and fixed to make sure that it flowed. So you didn't feel like you were reading two different complete stories. We just wanted this to be one huge.
That sounds awesome. That's a good.
Yeah.
I was always curious how they do. I hear people and they say they write together, but then sometimes you get the feeling that one person's writing it, and the other person may or may not be participating really at all. Maybe they just threw their name out there. But that's a cool process to go back and forth like that. I think that's an interesting way of doing it.
Well, that's me. So go to that guy.
All right, RJ.
All right, I'm RJ Rolls. I really just started out as a book lover, horror lover. Started the Books of Horror group, and kind of fell into writing. I had some buddies that were also writers, and they were just starting out. Justin Woodward and Jay-Z Foster, and started, beta reading for them, giving them some feedback on their stories. And so, reading stories always sparks ideas in your mind. So I started tinkering and writing stories here and there, and, passed it to them finally when I had confidence in it. And they all loved it. So, once you get that confidence first instilled in you, then you can, present yourself to the world and let the readers have what was in your mind. So that's how Girl's Best Friend came to be. And from then on, I've been slow at releasing my own stuff, but about the time that I put out Girl's Best Friend, I think I had some other short stories published from like Sinister Smile Press, and Kevin J. Kennedy had published a few. And I'm fighting the cat that's trying to jump on my lap. So from while all that was happening, before I got to the sequel to Girl's Best Friend, I had the idea for the Books of Horror anthologies. It was always going to be the community anthologies, which in my mind, it was, you always hear people on the outskirts like, hey, I've got this idea, would make a great story, And so I'm like, well, if you have that idea, you need to write that story and not try to give it to somebody else, but you need to do it. And so I put out the open call for Books of Horror and said, if you got a story, write it down, get it to me, and I'll get it published for you.
So when did you start Books of Horror?
2016, I believe, is when the group started.
Cool. I was just curious because it's grown. So, when I discovered it, it had already become like a juggernaut. So, that was a couple years ago.
I've only been in Books of Horror maybe 2 years.
Newbie.
I know it never occurred to me that there were like-minded people on Facebook that loved horror, and then it wasn't until months after I wrote my first book that I was like, oh, there's groups that we can go and talk about our stuff and find other people's stuff, and so I never thought about it. By that time you guys were already just rocking. So very cool.
Yeah, the origin of the group really comes from a lot of us that started the group and was in the group in the beginning came from Stephen King groups. That's all there was on Facebook back then, was just 100% Stephen King groups, this and that one, different, different topics. Like you had that was Joe Hill fan page. I think that was started by Justin Woodward. And then there was like Stephen King concert readers. It's still pretty popular today. So me and Antonio Orozco, he's in San Antonio, we got together and we're like, we should start our own group, you know, like, all right. And the conversation boiled down to, all right, we both love Brian King. He's like one of our top, you know, favorite authors of all time. So do we start a Brian King fan group, or do we start a group that encompasses all of horror? So we went with the latter, and I believe not long after we started that, Ron Davis started the Brian King fan group. So I think Books of Horror was a good call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I think
Well, yeah,
so.
and it says a lot about, I guess, the genre itself, that it doesn't have a ton of fan pages just for the overall, that everybody's kind of factioned up, but or at least at the time when you created it. It does seem that people are a little more open now to trying new things, but yeah, for a while there, it was Stephen King or bust. So
Yeah.
Or Dean Koontz. Don't forget Dean
Oh,
Koontz.
yeah.
I know you don't like him.
Oh boy, here we go.
I like Dean Koontz a whole lot.
Oh, I don't have a problem with them. I just
Hey,
I
as long
just
as
read
everybody
Phantoms.
John Saul, we're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another guy that nobody talks about, John Saul. So, you know, there should be way more of discussion about his stuff. He's got a huge catalog. So,
Yeah. Yeah, so Crimson Pinnacle, how did that even happen? Was that the same thing as, you know, Books of Horror, or did that, how
That
did
was
you
our,
come to that?
we were doing our trilogy with the witches and everything. And basically how it boiled down was when a mommy writer and a daddy writer love each other very much, boom. That was RJ's idea, was to have this baby called Crimson. Well, it was a couple of different names at first, and then, but he wanted that baby, like his Books of Horror publications are from Books of Horror Press. And
are they? Okay.
yeah, and his books, RJ's books, are, you know, under RJ Rolls Press. So we wanted that notoriety. We wanted to be, you know, real. And I don't even, probably 6 or 7 different names that we went through. And then finally he said, what about Crimson Pinnacle Press?
So when you guys came up with the idea to do this imprint, was it just to cover the books you guys are working on together, or are you thinking about branching it out, doing other things?
In the beginning, it was always to be for, you know, the witch books. And with the witch books, Payable on Death was, like Jason had kind of said, was only ever supposed to be one book of us just co-authoring together. And then, you know, it had a vague enough ending. And then I had that first scene that's in Devil Daughters, which is the second book, just pop into my mind of a young witch running through the woods and encountering somebody. So I was like, well, there it is. There's the second book. So when we did the second book, we got together and we were like, well, you got to have a trilogy. If you're going to do 2, you got to have 3.
Mm-hmm.
So how we wrote the second book, kind of like how the Matrix movies are kind of made. Like 1 is one off, and then 2 and 3 tie in together so much that they have to be, you know, it's like one continuous story broken up into 2. That's really what 2 and 3 are.
Our world got so big that, thank God, you know, RJ came up with the idea of putting a key at the bottom. So we remembered who our characters were, where they were going, which place was where, who did this kind of spell, who talked like this, who looked like that. And it was just, because that first book, it started out with just, you know, like 5 girls, you know, just 5 girls in this coven. And it exploded, like, you know, without going too much, into like this huge world. Okay. And by the time the second book we started writing, I'm like, what the hell does she look like? Because I wanted to describe her a little better.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
he said, hang on. And the next day I looked and there was this key at the bottom. And I was like, God bless you, RJ Rolls.
So, and I know you guys done some anthologies underneath the press though, as well, right?
I think we're working on the 4th one.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we have an open call for a 5th one, but.
And now, are you thinking about doing your individual works on Pinnacle, or are you going to keep it separate with the RJ Rolls imprint?
It depends on which universe I'm writing in, because
Right.
doing all these anthologies, I've neglected wrapping up Girl's Best Friend, which should be a trilogy.
Sure.
So that would just be under my name, and I think it's RJ Rolls Publications. And then I think for Crimson Pinnacle Press, for us, it probably should be something co-written together, or anthologies we do
Yeah.
together.
Sure.
Agreed.
But
I was going to say, and which format do you guys prefer? Do you guys enjoy doing the anthologies more, or do you like doing these longer form?
I like anthologies better. Don't get me wrong. I love that was my first novel, was writing with RJ, and then ended up being
Sure.
my 3 novels. But as far as anthologies, my heart and soul is short stories. I love, a gut punch is get in as quick as you can and then get you right back out. It's short, it's sweet, it keeps your attention, and everybody, life happens. We all have life, and I may not be able to finish a book, as fast as a lot of people. It might take me, a month to read a book. And in that month, how much have I forgotten? And, the breaks in between reading. Short story, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to read that, cover to cover on that book and just enjoy it, absorb it, and not have to feel guilty that there's, 80 of them left still in that book.
Sure.
Yeah.
I always wanted, my dream was to be somewhere in the middle of an anthology. There's my name, there's my words. People read it and they remembered it. And RJ actually made that dream capable for me. And I would say hundreds, because they have all reached out to us, RJ. People that have never been published before and just wanted that chance to have that little dream off that bucket list. And RJ provides that 100%.
Yeah, I know, because volume 3 of Books of Horror Anthology, I guess you got so many submissions, you had to make it 2 parts.
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah, I love doing anthologies, especially when you have like fun, unique ideas. That's what we always try to do with Crimson Pinnacle Press. It's got to start with that fun kind of idea that you don't see other people doing all the time. So, but going back to that Books of Horror Volume 3, I have a love and hate relationship with anthologies because of that book. That is over 1,000 pages of short stories. That's
Yeah, I
a
was going to
lot.
say, that's got to be the most difficult part, is going
Yeah.
through everybody's submission and then having to say yes or no and figuring out what works best. I couldn't imagine doing that.
Yeah. Did you even turn anybody down for those?
Yeah. We had to.
I
Not
have
many.
a couple times,
I
yeah.
can count on one hand how many we've turned down, but it's just because it was just, okay, this is a little too far. Yeah, there's other publishers that will publish that kind of stuff. And more
Okay, so they were turned down not because of quality, but because of content.
yeah, we can
Okay.
always help with quality. That's the best part of editing, is helping someone see something else and from a different view.
Sure.
But as far as what the content is, oh boy, yeah.
Have you guys ever come across anybody that's been reluctant or resistant to editing or any of that kind of stuff? I mean, how do you massage that kind of a situation?
Well, with volume 1, I think I had somebody. Okay, with Books of Horror, I asked 3 things not to be in your story, and that's graphic scenes of rape, child abuse or neglect, and then animal abuse or murdering, like killing the animals like in a vicious way. So there were a few stories, and then one author, I said, you could change the scene, and they were reluctant, so they resubmitted a story, and I accepted that story.
Okay.
Now
I was
going
just
back to
curious.
volume 2, I did reject a story for it would basically be me and Christy Little, who was the co-editor on that book, basically trying to rewrite the whole story to get it being, being able to just read it in a flowing manner. It was pretty tough to get through. So there was that one, and then a few in volume 3, which Jason is the co-editor on. There were a few just out and out very cruel animal scenes that I had to reject.
I was
And
gonna say, by the time 3 came out,
not even to the story. It makes no sense. It's just kind of
Right.
thrown in there for like shock value. Like, come
well, I was
on.
gonna say, by the time Volume 3 came out, that's when extreme horror seemed to be kind of peaking, or not peaking, or at least getting more interest. And it seems like
Yeah.
people were trying to produce stories just to shock and awe more than give us a good story. So I can totally see where that's coming from. But yeah, I don't know how, yeah, it'd be tough to dig through, and you got people just giving you stuff just to try and shock you more than entertain you.
Yeah,
Well, then
generally,
on top of the the books of horror anthologies, we decided as Crimson Pinnacle Press that we should do our own anthologies as well. So we're doing 2 huge books with books of horror, editing thousands of pages of paper, and then we're doing Crimson Pinnacle Press, which was an open call. Or no, the first one I think was we reached out to people. It was an invite only, and it was authors that they can all be found in books of horror. So we're double working ourselves on that. And then RJ is he's a mean boss. I'm gonna put it that way. We're gonna do another anthology on top of that one, just back to back for Crimson Pinnacle. And I'm like, I'm still reading books of horror, man. But it ended up being awesome. And
I think if you look at the publication dates, Books of Horror, Volume 3, Book 1 and 2, and Fairy Tale Horror Show released in the same month, which was October last year. So we put out 3 books in 1 month.
together.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I remember them coming out, and I'm thinking it was like a 1-2 punch.
Well, it was great because on Amazon it was Books of Horror Book 1, Books of Horror Book 2, and then the Fairy Tale anthology we released. And then for the first couple of days, it was just back and forth between those 3 books were all the top 3 for a while, and it was like, oh, okay, this is good. Word
That's
is out.
awesome.
So when you're going through submissions for one of your anthologies, we'll just say Old Scratch, which I loved that book. Pick it up, read it. It's great. Everybody should read that book. Frickin' Doris. So anyways, how do you split up, the submissions and going through them? And do you just, you have your mailbox, your Crimson Pinnacle at, I think, at Gmail, whatever. Do you just, I'm going to log on and read submissions, or do you have like, okay, you take these 50, you take these 50? How does that work?
RJ is a very good organizer, and he'll put everything in a document form, and he leaves notes on everything. So like, we say we work together and all this stuff. Like, okay, I'm in Ohio and he's down in West Virginia. I've never met RJ. We're gonna meet for the first time at Care 2 coming up next year, and that goes back to the when a mommy writer and a daddy writer love each other. But so he'll organize everything, and then he'll have notes like posted. This one's great. What do you think of this, that, and the other? And I write faster than RJ, but I edit slower than him, and vice versa. And so he gets through the first pass, basically as they're coming in, and then I'm behind saying, all right, here's what we missed there. Let's talk about this idea, and then we'll talk to the author about it, and then, hey, do you think it would sound better if we tried this? And then they, either they like it or they don't. That's their prerogative and everything. So, we'll sit there and edit together, and then we'll edit with the author as well.
Now, is everything voted upon, or do you guys have like one veto that you can do, or one like automatic out, or is everything completely 50-50? You guys discuss everything.
RJ rules with an iron fist.
Okay.
It's true. We're going back, like setting up the document. I put all submitted stories into one Google Doc, and then from there we go through the entire submission list, and then we copy and paste that into a new file, and then we take out the stories that would be rejected, and then we have the beta file to send out to readers with the stories that will be in the anthology. So that's how that's set up. As to and then like we have to figure out how many stories do we want for this anthology, and it keeps keeps increasing with each one we put out. But I mean, it's never set in stone. So if we get more or less than what we set out for, like that we feel comfortable accepting, you know, story wise, could change.
Well, what's the
Like-
sweet spot for you guys? How many stories or how many pages?
Oh, the last anthology that we're editing right now is called Dead Heat, which is a anthology about, you know, summer camp stories. And we just wanted to take a twist. All of our anthologies are, you take an idea and we twist it. So like a fairy tale, you take a regular fairy tale and then you just twist the shit out of it and make it something totally different, off the wall. And then after that, we did Twisted Legends, which was an urban legend twist. So you take a regular urban legend, you know, and just, you know, Bloody Mary. And somebody wrote a story, an awesome story. I think that was Jay, wasn't it?
Yeah, Jay Major.
Yeah. And she did this whole different take on Bloody Mary. And
Blubber Mary.
yeah,
Blubber.
And then, you know, so we decided we wanted to do like a summer camp theme and, you know, take a regular, you know, oh, you know, the guy with the hook or something like that, and just make it your own. Do something totally different with it. And a lot of people tend to stick towards the source material, and it's like, okay, we can't take this because we wanted something totally, you know, 180 from what that is.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of time, you know, that's the worst part, is just writing that rejection letter, because you know you're going to send it to them, because we know what it takes to work to put in words and make it story, and nobody likes that rejection at all. And, you know, and they may miss the criteria by just a little bit, but just enough that they, you know, that story can't be accepted. And the more anthologies we release, the more submissions we've been getting. And there are a lot of sick people out in this world, and we've one of them so much.
So when you guys do a rejection letter, is it in depth? Is it just sorry, we just can't accept the story? Or do you guys go a little deeper into it, kind of say, or is it case by case? Some letters, some people just get rejected, and then other stories that maybe just barely missed it, they get a little more information. How do you guys normally handle that?
I don't know a single author out there that's never been rejected. So, I mean, we all get it. It's nothing personal. Everybody knows it's nothing personal. And, you know, maybe that story didn't fit for that, and it'll be ready for something else.
Is that how you normally tell them, or do you just say, sorry, we just couldn't accept it this time?
Generally, it's a form letter.
Just a form letter.
But
I've had rejection letters that say that, and that's fine. But I've also had letters that come back and say, yeah, this wasn't accepted because of one thing, or you know, it was too similar to something else we had that we'd already said yes to, things of that nature. I'm just curious, because I know how much time you guys are putting into the process of it. Sometimes there's not time to sit down and give a lengthy reason why somebody was rejected.
No, we don't put it in the letter. It's pretty much just a standard, hey, congratulations, your story has been accepted, or hey, hate to be that guy, but, and then, you know, they can reach out to us and say, hey, what, you know, why? And then by all means, take the time and talk to them like, hey, dude, this is a great story, but, you know,
sure.
And they're appreciative. It's we all like critique. You know, we all hate doing our own edits, so why not have somebody else edit it? You know, self-editing is, I think, the worst part of writing. I think RJ is going to agree with me.
Yeah, editing is terrible.
Or that cover blurb.
Yeah.
cover blurb.
Yes, blurbs are sent directly.
I do not. I've never written even my blurb for my book Compulsions. I was like, I don't even know what I'm writing.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh, how do I explain this story to you real quick in like a paragraph?
Right.
So going back to the rejection thing, we're not going to say who, but we've been working on getting somebody to write a foreword for Dead Heat about that exact subject.
Oh, that's cool.
They kind of.
Oh, we're going to say who. I don't care. He already knows.
We haven't released it though, unless y'all want to. I mean, this will be out after the fact.
Yeah. So here's your exclusive. My good friend Rich Chismar is going to write the foreword to our Dead Heat anthology. He's going to express how indie authors are important about, you know, this whole industry, because not everybody's Stephen King. But everywhere you go, that's all you see. You see Stephen King and Rice. It's the same people, but
right.
We all want to be read too. And he started there, and he just exploded with Cemetery Dance, and super excited to have him as a part of this book and a part of
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Nice. Thanks for giving us the scoop.
Scoop.
The scoop. So what is it like? What about your covers? Like, I really like the old scratch cover. I think it's just beautiful. It's not like super detailed. I think it's perfect for what it is. So who comes up with the covers? Who does the covers? Do you do them in-house, or do you have somebody do them for you?
I have a great cover artist named RJ Rolls, and I think he's got another cover artist as well.
So with Crimson Pinnacle Press, the Witch trilogies, we had Jay-Z Foster make those covers for us from stock photos from free out there on the internet. And with the first couple of Crimson Pinnacle Press anthologies, they were also stock photos. Even or Old Scratch, but Dead Heat, I bought a cover from Grim Poppy Designs because I've been seeing a lot of her on Twitter. That's about the only place she posts them, and it's Christy. What's her name? She's another author. Can't remember right now, but she does.
I don't know who it is, so this is kind of nice.
She drops a bunch. We haven't released it at the time we're recording this, but I really dig the cover, and Jay liked it, so we've been, like, I look a lot of pre-made covers instead of actually having commissions. So if one doesn't fit it, I'll just try and find a free image to use that fits the anthology perfectly. Which, if you look at them, they're all great so far, but they are also stock photos. So with the Witch anthology coming up, man, I found one that I absolutely love, and I think it's going to knock y'all socks off when y'all see it. But it was made. It's going to be controversial. Half the people think it's controversial, but it's AI created.
I think it's
outstanding. I bought it from Steve Thompson, and he does great work. But I mean, it's just a beautiful cover.
I don't know, that Urban Legends, the Twisted Legends, will always be my forever my favorite cover that we've done, just because it is that blue and the contortionist, and it fits perfect with the theme. It was so great.
Yeah, I had the person's spine split on the spine of the book.
What a hassle.
So,
Yeah. Wow.
But with my books, and then with books of horror, I've always used Brian Scott to make those.
Yeah.
So, as far as I know, he's off Facebook now, and I have no way to contact him. So if I do another books of horror anthology, I have to start from scratch with finding somebody for my cover artist, and I have to find somebody for the cover art for the last book in the Girl's Best Friend trilogy. So it's kind of a pain in the butt.
Books of horror post, you'll see all these up and coming cover artists that are showing up. Like, hey, I've got this pre-made cover. I mean, that's all in Books of Horror, that Facebook group, and it's cool because we can. Okay, this guy's kind of in the direction that we want to lean towards, and it's
I remember that. Remember that girl's name, Christy Aldridge?
Yeah,
I may have heard of her.
Oh yeah, I've heard of her.
She's the one that made Dead Heat cover. So she goes back Grim Poppy Design on Twitter.
Okay. All right. Well, if you need a cover artist, my guy is really good. So.
And then Donna's seen another cover that she's done that will be in the far future. That's Christy Aldridge made that cover.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yes.
I love this community. It's like this is that tight indie community where we're all, everybody knows somebody. So 7 degrees of bacon, but it's
yeah,
RJ.
Yep.
Yeah, and everybody seems to be willing to help each other out. Rarely have I come across anybody that's not, looking to help other people succeed. Sometimes, every once in a while you run into somebody that's more about themselves, but almost everybody seems to be excited to share in your success as you know, as we all grow together.
Yeah. So what's the worst part of doing anthologies?
Reading all those stories.
Well, I kind of enjoy editing. I'm a masochist like that, but about halfway through, you get bogged down in it, and you're like editing 50 pages in a day is a good day. So, Dead Heat is as big as the Books of Horror anthology with the submissions we
This
got.
thing is big. It is
It's
a
about
big.
500 pages on the dock right now. And so I asked Jay, I was like, well, how many stories you want? And I think we're going to do 15 plus
15 in this
2,
one,
which is
and then I think
us
16 or
2.
17 in the Witch.
Yeah. So, and then along with, increasing is the authors that, the number of authors we accept for each anthology. We also have been trying to increase the payouts as well because, just starting out, everything's out of pocket for us. And we would be lucky to break even after, getting the authors paid and selling however many books we sell starting out. But it's not about making the money. It's about, getting, fiction in front of the readers. That's pretty much why we do it. That's pretty
Yeah.
much why I do Books of Horror anthologies and everything. But you get in the middle of those anthologies and then you're like, it's just like you're just now reaching the top of the hill now. It's like going down the hill from the middle section on. But if you get a good story, it reinvigorates you and gets you excited about it again. So
Now,
when
do
you
you
get bad
guys,
stories, it's tough.
I was gonna say, do you guys read as they come in, or do you wait till the cutoff date and then start reading at that point forward?
I think the first anthology we could, for the Crimson Pinnacle, we could read them as they came in. It was a slower trickle in, but as the more anthologies came out, it was just as soon as we'd say, "Hey, open call," it's just, somebody had a story that fits that. Oh, somebody had a story, and they just come in like 10, 12 at a time, and it's like, oh, okay, so we're gonna
Yeah.
go here.
Generally, I start after the submission call ends, but I'm building the document as they come in. So, like Jason said, he's a slower editor than me, so he can start on it, and then I'll bring up the rear, or I'll start on it, and he's bringing up the rear. But it's hard to, I don't know if y'all ever had to do it, but like writing and editing at the same time, I find it really hard to do. So like,
yeah,
going back to the original question, what's the worst thing is when I read these stories, there are so many more better writers than I am out there. Oh man, I thought I was good at what I did. Man, you guys are awesome. And like, that's why you'll see the same names in the anthologies, like your Ruth Ann's, and Jay Mazer. They're incredible authors, and you can't say no to them. These stories are remarkable, and they need to be read, and they need to be in print, and where they can live on forever. And you'll get a lot of the same, you'll see the same names pop up in a lot of different anthologies too, like Daniel Volpe and, Kevin J. Kennedy. It's because they're amazing at what they do. Their stories are, it's not a popularity contest. This is amazing. You need to read this. And it's awesome working with all these authors and, working with them, working for them, working together with them. And it's humbling to know that there's such greatness out there and we finally have an outlet where we can, put it all.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now, do you ever have anybody hounding you after a submission call closes for wanting to know if their story has been accepted or not? Has anybody been
just
like
had one today.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
But I thought he was messaging about, he sent an email and it was a follow-up, and I thought he was messaging about the witch anthology, and he's just like, is it accepted or not? And I was like,
Bro.
we'll let you know when the submission closes. And then I went back and looked at the date of the original email, and it was like for Dead Heat, and it's already closed. So I'm like, well, one of us will figure it out sooner or later that
Yeah, I like
I
watching
made a
art,
mistake.
so I don't have to do it. Yes, we
Right.
got this story. Yes, we're still reading it. Yes, we'll get back to you. And I'm just sitting here
It's
like,
only,
I'm editing, I promise.
it's only closed 15, 16 days ago, so
Yeah.
it ain't been that long.
And of course, you opened up the new one right after that. Thanks for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, blunt for punishment. But
Yeah, because that's really hard to do because everybody treats it a little differently when you do send in submissions. So you never know for sure how long it's going to be or how to
Right.
react. And I know I personally, if I send in a submission, I don't want to come across as pushy or anything like that. And but you're still trying to figure out. So yeah, I don't know how you guys balance all that stuff. That would probably be the hardest part for me is just trying to deal with everybody's noise while I'm trying to get the project done.
yeah, generally we try to give about a 2-month submission period. That gives you, if it's, if we hadn't talked about it on social media beforehand, we have a few times, but if we hadn't, you get the submission drop and then say it's like a month. That ain't no time to come up with an idea and then write the story out. At least not for me, it wouldn't be. So 2 months is pretty fair and reasonable time to get your story idea and flesh
And
it
we're not
out on
asking
the
for
page.
novels. It's going to be, your standard 3,000 to 6,000 word, nice, good, solid short story.
Yeah, that's another thing. We do general guidelines, and then half the people's like, how hard are you on pay or word count? And they're like, I got this 1,000-word short or long poem that I wrote, and then other people like, I got this 10,000-word story I would love for you to read. And I'm like, that's a novelette.
Yeah.
So like, I think we've always been relaxed though. Like, send it in, we'll take a look at it, and all we can say is no. But if it's great, knocks our socks off, we'll definitely accept it. But
You get that story in your head, get that out anyways.
yeah, I mean, it gets people writing. So
Yeah, I remember an interview that I heard that you did a while back, RJ, and I don't even remember who it was or when it was. It was last year sometime. And I just remember hearing you say, I'll publish just about anything.
yeah, definitely. I mean, if I love the story, and there's been, I'm trying to think, with Crimson Pinnacle Press, I think there's been a few stories that I like that, like Jason said, that's been too close to another story or something that we just had to pass up on. Like, this story might have just edged it out in the same subject matter, but we can't have like 2 of the same story, especially in a themed anthology. That kind of is a drawback to a theme. But when we did Fairy Tale Horror Show, we did make sure that nobody repeated the same fairy tales. Like, we made sure that everybody had their own fairy tale. So
it wasn't going to be 12 Cinderella stories.
Yeah. So I think I definitely want to do another fairy tale.
Yeah.
So I think with that, it might be, some of these will definitely be invite, especially like that one. It was our first one. So be a little bit, smaller, but it helps us control the stories like that. Like, we don't want the same stories or stories that we've had. If we did an open call, we might get stories of the same fairy tales that we got in the first one, but it would be in a different light. But
so how did you manage that with the fairy tale one? Did you did you like create a Facebook group for the authors that were in it and say, okay, these are the, tell us what your fairy tale is going to be and we'll list it out so everybody knows? Or did you kind of just
pretty much exactly that?
Did you? Yeah.
I know I took Little Red Riding Hood, and then RJ took he took the Big Bad Wolf,
Three Little Pigs,
and we actually made a co-authored story together. So there, my story's first, and then his follows right behind mine. So as you're reading, it switches to, same character, same, plot, same setup, but it's RJ picking it up. That was kind of really, a lot of fun to do. I think that we definitely didn't do that in the Urban Legend one, but yeah,
I haven't done that
went back to the
any other
co-author
again.
trilogy.
Yeah, but I mean, it'd be kind of cool to do witches since that's what we started with, but I already have my witch story planned out. Like, I have such hard time coming up with ideas on the spot, like with the open call like that. Even for my own open calls that I do, like,
As you see,
I
I
didn't
don't
have
have
a
a
story
double
idea.
story from scratch. I mean, I just didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't have that story in me. I wanted to. Trust me, I wanted to be able to submit to my own company. I just didn't have the story in me, so it was just this open call that I had to pass on. It's just those things that happen.
Yep. Yeah, it happens. So do you ever think that Crimson Pinnacle would ever do like novels or novellas from other authors, not just yourselves? Do you ever think you'd get into that, or
We
is
discussed
it?
it, and we both agreed that it was not in the best interest of what we want to do, what we want to focus on. And we both see the same thing going on right now with all these other publishing companies that are popping up and doing stuff where it's not working for them, because they'll have an anthology and then they'll have 15 different, little novellas that are coming out by these authors. And it's like, wait, go back to your bread and butter. And that's where we just want to stick, because that's our wheelhouse, is anthologies, short stories. Like I said, get in, get out.
Yeah, I would never say never, but I don't see it in the foreseeable future for Crimson Pinnacle Press. And for me personally, only because you see the collapse of these small presses every other week or every month, and then you see the authors getting stranded, and I wouldn't want that on my conscience.
100%.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Like
Yeah,
when we
I
was
mean-
at AuthorCon, that happened with Silver Shamrock while we was there.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very odd the way they pulled the plug that quickly
Yeah.
over all that
So-
stuff. But
It would be a bitter pill to swallow if that was me doing that to somebody else.
And you're just sitting there like, okay, now where's my stuff?
Yeah, right. Wow, that's crazy. So I think what we'll have you do is, I know you currently have an open submission call. So if you want to give us a little bit of information about that, and when we post the video on YouTube, we'll make sure to have a link or the information there to where they can send their submissions in the description of the video. So if you want to, include the open dates and the, just briefly what it's about, we'll point people to the right place.
I know that it ends like September 16th for the open call. Whether this episode will be out by then or not, I'm not sure. So if you're watching this, get to writing real quick. But I think the minimum word count we are asking for is like 3,000, and then the maximum is about 7,000 or 8,000, and then
Don't use Times New Roman.
yeah, no Times New Roman ever.
Whoops.
That's RJ. That's RJ's biggest pet peeve right there. That and semicolons.
Yeah, you want to talk about something you don't like about anthos? Like, give me a New Courier or a Comic Sans, but
Something fancy like that,
I'll give you wingdings.
now the
Yeah.
theme for this one is witches, right? You want everything
witches and autumn.
and autumn.
Um,
Okay.
Yeah, kind of how we did summertime.
Everybody.
But yeah, like the anthology or your story for the witches, we haven't named it yet, but it should include those two elements, and that's how we did Dead Heat. It should be set in the summertime and should revolve around
The end of
either
summer.
like
End of summer.
end of summer
camp.
camp, camping, summer camps, camping, just
And
trying to think.
I was saying to be clear, that one's already closed. Dead Heat's closed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
He's
We're talking
closed.
about that you can do a submission for the Witches in Autumn.
Yes. So 3 to 8K by September 16th, I believe. Submit to Crimson Pinnacle Press at gmail.com. And if your story is accepted, you will receive $15 and a paperback copy.
Nice. All right. Awesome. All right, now it is time for the Not Stephen King Book of the Week. And this week we are talking about Earworm by Aaron Thomas Milstead. The cover is basically blank, and of course I have an advanced reader copy, so I have the band across the top. It is from Bloodbound Books. And I heard about this book on the Books of Horror group. Rob Carter had posted it. He said it was like fantastic book, and I was really into checking it out. And I actually joined the Bloodbound Books street team, and they sent me a copy of this to read and review. So basically, we all know what an earworm is, right? The wheels on the bus go round and round, and it gets in your head and it stays there forever,
Why
right?
would you do that?
So basically the main character Ripley is diagnosed with a degenerative brain disease, and he's basically dying. And his relationship with his wife is not that great. He's living, spoiler alerts, we will spoil this. He's living in the guest house of their, it's kind of like a mansion, because his wife is rich. But he starts hearing this music. And he starts hearing these voices in his head. And basically, he's got a parasite living in him. And the parasite starts talking to him. And the parasite's name is Bogart. And he has to like escape from these other parasites that have taken over other people. It's really interesting. And the ending is, for me, it was sad. I was like, oh, damn, how could they do that? But I hardly ever see this book talked about, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's not super scary. Maybe it's more cosmic horror, I guess you could say, because the parasites end up being like aliens. So yeah, it's a really interesting book. It's definitely worth a read. It's very entertaining. There's some great songs referenced in it. I like to say books like this have a great soundtrack. Just because of the way that they talk about the different songs that come in it. So Earworm by Aaron Thomas Milstead. Check it out. It's a great book. And neither of you.
Sounds interesting. I would say it sounds almost like it could be Bizarro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it probably, I mean, it could be, I guess, considered Bizarro. But the cover, like, if I were to see this in a store,
yeah, I probably would walk.
I would be like, eh.
Are you judging a book by its cover, Donna?
I totally judge books by its cover, Jay.
You too.
Totally. I always have.
Good covers.
Yeah. So yeah, if I were to see that book in a store, I would probably walk right by it.
Yeah, unfortunately, and they probably thought they were being clever, you know, because it's so simple.
Album, Beatles' White Album.
Yeah, they're like, oh, look, you know, somebody they'll pick it up because they're curious why we didn't do a cover.
Yeah.
Most of the time we just walk right by it, unfortunately.
Yeah, so the woman's silhouette is actually words, and it's actually titles of songs. You've Got a Friend in Me, Danger Zone.
Now see that right there, if that was a little more pronounced, that might grab my attention.
Yeah. So yeah, you can't really see it on the, you know, in the camera, but if you can faintly see the woman's silhouette.
We'll put a link down below, and you guys go check it out and see what, because I'm sure they'll have a high def picture, maybe something that showcases it, and we can check it out online.
Yep. So yeah, that's the end of our episode. We want to thank RJ and Jason Myers, or Jay, he likes to go by, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you guys taking the time and being our first guests. I hope we weren't too weird. So
yeah, appreciate you guys coming on.
I hope we wasn't either.
Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah, and we'll definitely let you know when this episode's going to be airing, and we'll see you around. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
See y'all later.